Evening all on playchess.com and streaming to YouTube. Okay, so I hope you're all looking forward to maybe the over the board chess season that's starting soon. I'm quite excited by that, and the Olympiad still, has a great feast of games, which was absolutely amazing to watch. Some of them. Let's have a look now, continuing on from last week at round 10. So round 10 had a lot of very, very interesting games. And let's have a look at the highest profile game, which is arguably Magnus Carlsen playing black against Saric, a 2-6-7-1 GM. So e4 from Saric. And let's see what happens here. e5 from Magnus. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop b5, the WhiteElo pairs. Now quite a rare move here was actually played. If I connect live book, it's about 4, 5, 6. The 7th choice move, knight d4. Okay, let's add a bit here as well, just in case. So, yeah, knight d4, the Bird's defense. So Henry Bird, the British player Henry Bird, created this, and it immediately creates a trap line. Maybe at club level you could fall into this. I hope everyone's seen the trap line. So if white plays knight, sorry, not knight takes e5. Where is the trap line? It might not actually be in this. What am I talking about? Is this the trap line or not? Not particularly. No, the trap line was on bishop c4, slightly different. Forget that. So knight d4, white took here, and after e takes d4, white now played bishop c4. So keeping control of the d5 break here with bishop c4. I think this is one of the better moves in the position. Some players have also castled here. So bishop c4. And Magnus played knight f6. WhiteElo on YouTube stream. I hope chat's working there, by the way. So knight f6, and now white actually just castles here, and Magnus struck the center with an immediate d5. It seems in my live book c6 is quite a popular move here, to play c6. I just want to show you this line. For example, like this apparently has been played before. So knight g4, this looks a bit strange, doesn't it? And this has all been played before a few times, just to give you a gist of c6 in this position. But no, d5 was played by Magnus. And now we have e takes d5, and usually apparently knight takes d5 is played. Well, when I say usually, not too many games actually to go on. But Magnus played bishop e7, and white can actually hold on to the pawn now. And white did. Even Saric dared to hold on to the pawn with queen f3. So holding that d5 pawn. Of course, it's double pawns. So is white really a pawn up? Bishop g4, and now queen f4. With pressure on the bishop, so no knight d5 because we're going to take the bishop. Black castled. h3. The bishop went. Now, instead of retreating, the other bishop attacked the queen, and the queen just took on d4. So here we can observe this is a bit of a strange gambit system from Magnus Carlsen. White seems to have all the pawns, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they're all there. All the guys are there, but black is 2 pawns down. What do you think about this position? It's a bit early in the broadcast to ask questions, maybe a bit later on. But anyway, white for the moment is 2 pawns up. We see c5, and that gives basically a passed pawn now. There's no stopping the passed pawn, but it's blockaded at the moment. Queen d3. Now bishop h5 is played. So with aggressive ideas For example, b5 are latently in the position to try and play knight d5 and bishop h2 if white ever took on d5. So b5 is a concern here, a real concern. And white now played knight c3, so keeping control of b5 and d5, rook e8. And then we've seen this move f4. So any bishop g6 is now answerable with f5. And you might think, well, hold on a sec, why couldn't black have played bishop g6 here? I don't think this is a problem. Queen f3. Let's have a look. If taking here, d3, and the bishop hasn't got too many squares, and we got this nice pin coming up. So black wasn't that excited about this position. Okay, so rook e8 was played, f4, a6. Now b5 is seriously threatened, so a4. Queen d7, and it looks tempting to play g4 and f5. Let's have a quick look here. If g4, then actually black apparently can take this. Let's see, taking, check, where there's the king move. And now bishop takes f4, and black is actually apparently doing very well here. There are numerous important checking possibilities. So this is wisely avoided by white, not to play g4 here, to try and trap the bishop. We see instead queen g3, pointing at g7. Altogether much more annoying. In fact, you know, the queen g3 implies there's going to be coordination now on g7 coming up. This bishop at the moment is not doing too much. It's actually blocked in by that pawn there, so this is the logical diagonal. So we see actually now Magnus in a bit of difficulty here. Material down. He plays knight e4, and white takes that off, but that's clearing that diagonal. Rook takes e4. Okay, hitting the bishop, and now b3, dual purpose, protecting the bishop, and we've got bishop b2 on the cards. So we've got some nice coordination of the queen and bishop. All material up still. White's got all of the pawns still. Magnus is 2 pawns down. The engine evaluation isn't so terrible. It's only plus 1.2 at the moment for white. Queen c7. And here we see the move d3, protecting f4 and hitting the rook. Rook e2. And okay, what does rook e2 do? I think it might be discouraging bishop b2 here. Let's have a look. This wasn't played. Magnus played queen g5. If we try bishop b2, then actually bishop g6 is possible. So that's still okay for white. But okay, queen g5 now was played. Looking at the bishop and provoking a weakness, because if bishop g6, then I think we can play f5. If f6, then the queen can drop back. If we go like this, then we can take the rook. So yeah, sorry, that's hitting the rook and bishop. So black actually, this is looking like a dangerous move. Magnus opens up those dark squares. It looks horrible to open them up around his king. Bishop b2, now immediately threatening queen f6 and mating on h8. So this is looking grim now, this position, after bishop b2. Bishop e7. Okay, what's the idea first? Well, if queen h6, I think black can just play bishop f8. Okay, but white now plays bishop f6. So inviting an exchange of bishops, but surely d6 then, and we're looking at f7. If we have a quick look at that, if bishop takes, queen takes, so white has d6, also can challenge here. It's looking grim, basically, the pressure. So black here, Magnus actually played a different move, h6. And white can actually consider queen h4 here. This seems a plausible move as well, to play queen h4. This position is okay for white, but actually maybe another interesting move, bishop e5. So counter-attacking black's queen. And Magnus avoids the exchange of queens, but he's losing another pawn in doing so. So what's the idea here? White is now threatening a mate on g7 and h8. So rook takes e5 was played, that's the idea. With something sneaky here. Now who's awake? I hope someone's awake. So if white plays f takes, which he didn't, can you see what black would play here? Which is actually only given as a small advantage to black technically. But what would black be able to play here if I gave you 20 seconds starting from now? Anyone? Black to play here. So Magnus has just played rook takes e5, f takes. Sorry, f takes wasn't played. Sorry, pardon me. But why wasn't f takes played? Actually, I'm just going to try and do something with this as well. Okay, so in this position, black has what exactly? Okay, yeah, I hope you've all spotted it. This wasn't played because bishop g5. But even here, you know, remarkably, white still has a reasonable position according to engines with taking here. This is funny. And then d6. The position is so good that even this position seems to be okay for white. Funny enough. That's an interesting point. I didn't expect that. Apparently, this is forcing black into some sort of weird position like this. Anyway, this is just an engine line, but it just shows, you know, white's position is really, really strong, and this is given as equal. I know it's crazy stuff, but anyway, no, white doesn't have to do that. Much stronger move than all this is d6. So now the bishop and rook attacked. This f7 is a problem as well. And here after d6, okay, so if bishop takes d6, then there's no bishop g5, so f takes, and then also we've opened up on f7, so that's end of game. And if queen takes, then actually this is good, bishop takes, because then we can play this with check and win the queen. So good move, d6. Magnus is now nearly plus, it's nearly +4 for white after d6. Rook e2 was played. D takes e7. Queen takes. And now f5. So horrible threat of fg here, and if takes we can take that because we've got that pin. Queen h4, it's pretty grim position. I don't know what black can do actually. This we can just take here, and as I say, we can take here. So that's pretty grim. Check. This is just loads of material down for black. But the game isn't much better actually. Magnus tries this queen h4, and it's nearly +8 technically for white. If white plays apparently king h1, then threats of f6 and fg are quite lethal. Magnus, I don't know, if he plays this, white can actually play very strongly with this, and apparently check here, and the checks, I think they're quite lethal. But white doesn't have to do any of this. This might require some calculation. White doesn't have to do any of that. That's crushing as well. No, white just was content with a clear advantage. He just wants to win the game, not necessarily play perfect moves every time. He just simply retreated his queen, offering the exchange of queens. His material up. This is quite a crushing position after just queen f4. If black just takes this, then we've actually got g4 on the cards, winning the bishop. If g5, we can just do this, and this bishop's dead. you know, white's material up. If something like this is horrible, yeah, it takes. We've still got G4 on the cards. It's horrible position for black to play this. 2 pawns down. So anyway, in the game, Magnus played G5. White took, the queen's off, rook F4, so threatening to be 3 pawns. Magnus takes 1 pawn back, 2 pawns up, bishop E2, rook E4, threatening to just double here, and also rook E8 on the cards. Rook D2. Okay, so rook E7, counter-attacking on F7, so maintaining 2 pawns up. Whatever happens now, bishop takes. 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, pawn up, 2 pawns up again. F6, still 2 pawns up. Rook D8, then bishop H5. So if white doubles, white is actually threatening mating, because this pawn holds the squares. King G8 was played, and here after rook E8 check, Magnus resigned. Okay, let's have a look at this final position. If takes, then actually F7 check is the killer, because then we're queening. Yeah, that's the reason we're going to queen. If I think bishop takes is actually not that great at all, you know, compared to that. Bishop E4 and black still got a position almost. So no. This idea of F7, brilliant. So black resigned. Yeah, Magnus was smashed basically. I think something about the opening statement. I think it's not popular for a particular reason. This birds. If white knows what he's doing, it seems so. Taking and then just putting the bishop back. This seems to be a good line, judging from this game. It seems to be a lot of fun. I guess it was meant as a surprise weapon. 55% results with C6, 50% with D5, but I think here black usually takes it. So I don't know, it seems to be very riskily played by Magnus, out of character. It seems a little bit out of character, the game. Yeah, no, Magnus was smashed. It was horrible. This particular round, yeah, with the black pieces. So well done to Ivan Saric, a 2671. Okay, let's go on to another game. Now, also of interest, accentuated by the Sinquefield Cup, is Caruana. So let's have a look at Caruana's round 10 game. It was very interesting in its own right. E4, Nikola Jukic at 25-21 GM playing white. We could take Caruana's side, black perspective. He played the Sicilian defense. He plays E6 here. D4 takes, knight takes. In blitz, I think he's taken out his bishop in one game in blitz against Magnus Carlsen. He didn't do that here. I think it was this position. He played A6, knight C3, D6. So Scheveningen in the centre. Pawn formation, bishop D3, knight F6. After castles, interestingly, you might think bishop E7 is quite popular. Here it is. There's also B5. Apparently that's the top move, or queen C7. G6 a bit rarer. That was played. And it seems, you know, usually when I annotate a game like this, you usually criticise the player for weakening too many dark squares. But Caruana's playing black here, so when that happens, there must be some exception to the rule going on here to weaken all these dark squares. What is going on? Well, the bishop, I guess this is congestion on the D file, so maybe D6 isn't a problem. A4, knight B7, bishop E3, B6, queen D2, bishop B7. Now white plays bishop H6. Is this already dangerous? This allows some forcing moves now from black. So black actually takes this and now plays knight G4. I think one point of this is if queen G7, I think black's got queen F6 to evict the queen. So the queen actually goes to H3. And then we have H5, funny enough. So, okay, without the dart square bishop on both sides, what's happened here? Without the dart square bishop, it seems actually on the surface, if there isn't some major disaster on e6 coming up, then this might be okay for black. Bishop e2, knight gf6. So here, I don't think it does anything to take here. It doesn't look as though white's rooks are yet in the game. Queen e3, queen c7, rook a d1. Now it starts to look a little bit dangerous, maybe some sort of sack later. Queen c5, queen d3, knight e5, the queen goes to e3, knight ed7, queen d3, queen b4. So black is not castling here. If he had castled, let's have a quick look. If black had castled, then knight b3, and actually could win that d6. So Caruana playing queen b4, so against that knight b3 threat. d6 a concern. f4. Let's just test knight b3. If knight b3, oh, actually I think we can take care. If take care, we can take the queens off, and that's fine. So f4. Now knight c5. So we've got a lot of pressure here on e4. Queen h3. Now looking at e6 again, and we've got a rook active here, so this is more dangerous than usual. White's leaving that e4 to be taken, and that is taken. Caruana does take that. But in taking that, you know, he is opening up this diagonal. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e6. So it has happened. How good is this piece sack? Well, Caruana takes it, actually. Queen takes, king f8. And it looks pretty dangerous with this f file. f5. So precision defense needed here. How could black go wrong? For starters, a taking doesn't seem at all a good idea. This is a mate in 3 of the check. You know, mate in 3. No, that's not the best defense available. So no, in this critical position, you might think also g5. That might actually be not falling apart here at g5, but Caruana first played check and then played g5. So with the check, he's got things like this to go in reverse gear. f6, okay, threatening mate in 2. So queen c7, bishop d3, and here, okay, if we move the knight, I think this is big trouble. If we move the knight, I suspect. Actually, no, it seems okay. It's not falling apart just yet. It's attacking the queen. Apparently, that's okay as well. But better is what was played, a forcing move, rook e8. And then another one, rook e5, very important. Okay, and now going on to the counter-attack here with h4. So trying to wrench open this diagonal. It looks so easy. Just wrench open that diagonal. Where's white's attack? Black seems to be the one attacking now. In fact, I think there's an immediate threat of knight g3 check to factor in here. Just to show that, I mean, just let's put it in a token move, okay? Forget this move, it doesn't have any importance. But if something, a token move, it was black's turn, I think knight g3 check. Takes. We got a mating net like this. So, anyway, so here, white actually played b4 to, I think, against knight g3 check, so cutting out the queen c5 stuff. I don't know what else though white can do. White doesn't seem to be in a great way here. So b4, h3, this horrible diagonal is opened up. King g1, h takes g, which weakens the h2 pawn now. Look at this, another disaster. Just waiting here. It's horrible now. White's attack, well, is nowhere, and black's attack is evident now after d5, threatening the pawn, h3. Now bishop c8, another forcing move. The queen's being really kicked around, and you might think, well, okay, queen b5 looks interesting maybe at first glance, but Caruana just plays rook takes h3 here, leaving this knight to be taken. And white actually resigned now. Let's have a look. If he takes the knight with the bishop, then it's mating 2 actually check, and g1 is checkmate. So this does look grim. Same effect. We've got this discovered check here. So this looks really grim. After this rook takes h3. So Nikola Djukic resigned. So yeah, it was. I think personally, I thought it was a bit surprising. This g6, it hasn't actually in my book. It's not really there much. It's like 4/5 down. Not many games. 16 games for g6, but it seemed to surprisingly work very well in this game. Don't know if there's a particular reason for that. It seems, if d6 is not a problem, if the king's not a problem here, it seems, there's some coordination going on with rook and bishop actually, potentially, as in the game. Yeah, it just seems as though d6 was almost a problem because of knight b3. Interesting. Now this is queen b4. Is this really happening? Knight a2? I mean, what if knight a2? Queen takes b2. We can't do anything here. Odd. And if knight b3... I'm just wondering about these weaknesses, really. If this was really a convincing game. Maybe bishop takes e4. There's always counterplay. And if... I don't know, f3, there's always e5. So, strange game. It seems as though, here already, this position seems losing for white. Black's really just got the potential attack here. I don't know. If white hasn't got any clear attack, this looks absolutely bad. Hold on a sec. The engine note in this position does actually say bishop c4 should have been played. That's interesting. As equal, queen c7, rook takes d6. This is forcing a draw. So if takes, we mate here. If knight takes, it forces a draw. Check. Bishop takes. Check. Right. If here that's winning for white. So that's kind of draw is forced. Apparently. This might have been good enough for a draw. So a losing blunder around here, not to play bishop c4, it seems. Also bishop f3 seems to draw as well. So it's just f6 seems to lose. F6 just loses. It gave Caruana a chance for queen c7. So after that, it's okay. If we look at this bishop c4 here, it doesn't really do much. That f6 square was important for the queen, actually. I think that's why we have horrible stuff going on here. Well, okay, so yeah, just at the critical moment here, bishop c4 might have been drawing for white. Apparently, this is equal. Bishop c4 missed his chance. Okay, let's go on to another game. Nakamura, another star from the Sinkfield Cup. Let's have a look at his game in round 10, which was actually really interesting for the opening. He played b3, Nimzo Larsen attack. So against Fernando Peralta, a 2-5-7-4. d5, bishop b2, and black plays bishop g4. This is quite amusing to me, actually, in terms of a caricature of light square control you're about to see. So h3, bishop h5. d3, you see white's on the light squares here, and these squares, all light squares. Have a look at this. c5, knight d2. So white potentially is doing this and hitting light squares with this stuff. Knight c6, knight f3. f6, weakening some light squares. Okay, c4, d4. So it's a bit like a Benoni in reverse. g3, e5, bishop g2. Knight h6, and here is where it starts to be quite funny. a3, a5, a backward retreating move now, bishop c1, and potentially knight e4 is useful. So if knight f7, that wasn't played, this is interesting for g4 now. You see this grip on these light squares is interesting, and maybe, you know, something like this, and we've got a better grip on the light squares. But okay, f5 from black. Now an amusing little move, so not castling, knight h2 was played, and actually this bishop d5 is a bit of a pain to stop black castling. If bishop f7, this looks interesting for white. Maybe to do something like this, and then or maybe taking here, or even something else. If we move this knight back, then g4, and you see this is very interesting positionally. This bishop, these light squares generally, the knights look to be occupying a lot of light squares. But okay, so knight h2, bishop e7, and the knight does go back. Knight goes to here, f1. So very creative opening play so far, I would say. And if we get rid of these two pawns standing together with g4, we get hold of that e4 square as well. And in fact, after knight f7, now this is played g4. So black is in trouble, I think, on the light squares. Bishop g6, knight g3. A great grip here, intensity. For example, if f4, that demonstrates, you know, knight e4, that looks like fun, but the engine thinks black's okay, actually, funny enough. Maybe that should have been played, f4. Knight d6 was played instead. White took on f5, knight takes. Bishop d5, so stopping black castling. Knight takes, f takes. Rook f8. Knight f3. White now is able to castle after that. e4, trying to disrupt white. D takes. Queen c7. Okay, bishop f4. And now bishop d6 was played, but white has a very important defensive move in this position. It looks as though black's gambit here to pressurize g3 is dangerous. It looks, you know, you don't want a passive position here, so white doesn't really want to play this, because then g3 is a big problem. But that's solved really successfully here with this next move, actually. Can you guess what white plays in this position if I give you 20 seconds? So white to play here. What would you play in this position with white? Anyone? It's Dr. Pepper, it's not Diet Coke, by the way. Sorry if you're listening to the fizz. Okay, so white to play here. Any ideas? What would you play? No, not e5. Well, that e5 might just actually be the best move in the position, technically. e5 is actually interesting. It's the engine choice at the moment, Stockfish. It's worth looking at. Knight takes. Knight g5. It's interesting. It's got similar ideas to the game, actually. But no, first I thought this was a cute one anyway. e3. So the idea is if d takes, we can take here and we're exposing this bishop. But even here, queen takes, queen takes. Even this position apparently isn't so clear. Well, because f3 is dropping, it's still better for black slightly, apparently. So e3. So maybe best was taking and inviting that. Instead, black castled queenside, and now we get this cheeky knight g5 move. And I've had this in Blitz actually a couple of times recently, where someone seems to be neglecting general rules of development, etc., just trying to win the exchange, which is really annoying. Just trying to win the exchange if you can't punish it. And here, how is it punishable to try and stop the loss of the exchange? It seems difficult actually. If rook here, that wasn't played, then knight e6 is still possible. So this family fork actually is on the cards, and it seems difficult to do anything about it. So white seems to be in the driving seat here, mysteriously. Queen e7, white castles. D takes e3. Perhaps not best, I don't know, but it's a difficult position. Still faced with this knight e6. If a rook had moved here, then this check and knight e6 is still good. For example, like this. We can do all sorts of things here. Okay, we're not winning the exchange, but knight takes g7 is good. Apparently, yeah, it's tricky. Bishop takes. We can play check. So anyway, black was content to lose the exchange after d takes check, knight e6. So we got a fork. Black plays knight e5, and white doesn't want to take because then rook takes f1 check. So we have actually queen e2. So we're still maintaining this fork. Bishop takes e4. Queen takes e3, still maintaining the fork. Bishop takes, c takes, and yeah, black's just losing material here. He sacrifices the exchange like this. Rook takes. After rook e8, rook a f1. Rook f5 is on the cards, and then rook f7 after that once the knight moves. Queen d7. In this position, rook e4 was played, and black resigned. The problem here is if knight g6, then white has a strong knight takes c5, hitting the queen and the rook. So this is gruesome now. This after rook e4, black had to resign there. Okay, horrible. If he gives up another exchange like this is just a temporary fix, in fact, because we just treble. We're still going to win even more material. So that's pretty over after rook e4. I found the game interesting. Oh, have I just messed up the stream? That's the board. I think I found the opening interesting of this game. Hope the board's still okay. If we look, just creative play from Nakamura in the opening. You know, all this strange stuff with from this position, this bishop retreat, this knight retreat, that knight retreat. I thought it was very creative, even though technically it seems black might have been okay. This might have been an okay idea, or queen c7 with the idea of e4 as well. If white has to play this, then it doesn't look too good. You know, this e4 could have been in reserve actually. E4 here. Rook takes f4. This looks like a more accurate way of doing things. This would have been dangerous for white. This sort of thing. So there's still like a positional sacrifice for dark square control. You know, and black's got numerous ideas. So that's another way of playing it. So maybe it's not going to be repeated ever again, this opening, but it was interesting. So black, by playing e4 immediately, it seems as though this doesn't quite work out too well in this position, this idea of sacking the exchange here. White hasn't committed to castling on the king side and can play queen d3. So maybe escaping like this over here, king d2, or just like this. Okay, so yeah, an interesting game. Let's have a look at another. So Karyakin, let's have a look at a game of Karyakin as white. against Alexander Injac. So a 2-5-3-9, Karyakin 2-7-8-6. So e4 from Sergei Karyakin, c5. We have actually this annoying bishop b5 check. It's probably quite popular in Livebook. It's the second most popular move to d4. Bishop b5 check, Rozic style. So bishop d7. White just takes that off. Castles. He doesn't bother with some Moxie bind or anything. It just plays rook e1, and that opens up the center. Bishop e7, and now Moxie actually c4. Okay, he's got a bind on d5. Knight c3. So this is a comfortable position for White. You see this a6. Recently we saw some sort of Carlsen game in the Moxie bind with a5. Totally different stuff with a6. So Black's still, potentially pressurizing c4, with this sort of stuff. b3, rook c8, bishop b2, but this bishop looks a little bit menacing on the diagonal potentially. Queen a5, queen d2. I think there's no actually immediate threat just yet. Rook fd8, rook ad1. Now knight d5 is on the cards to hit the queen and the bishop. Queen h5, and Black might be tempted for knight g4 here. This is ruled out. h3, bishop f8, queen e3. When there's a move like this, I think this really is about the d6 pawn being potentially bullied on d6 at some point. Knight c5. But here now we see the move g4. Okay, the queen is using g6, f4 now, gaining space, and actually f5 is interesting. Rook e8 trying to discourage f5. Yeah, so if for example f5 here, I think taking we can take this anyway. So actually change of tact, knight f3 with the idea of e5. This is interesting, and in some lines knight h4 is going to be useful. h6. You see here actually the queen's got h7. If knight h4, queen h7. But no, e5 was played. D takes, f takes, knight fd7. b4, it's like Black's being pushed backwards here, rather precariously, and in fact this d7 looks as though it's loose. Has Black already gone wrong? No, apparently this is okay for Black, knight b6, because he's counter-attacking for this very interesting fork. And also there's this bishop c5 skewing stuff. But Karyakin actually, in this position, it looks quite scary to take on c5. But he does take on c5. Bishop takes. Now knight d4. And we see knight takes c4. Engine thinks this is about equal almost. Queen e2. And now there was a move apparently, or a couple of moves, which might have been okay. Maybe 3 moves, 4 moves. Apparently bishop b6, this is a bit crazy, bishop b6 might be okay for Black. I mean, say we did this here, say here, the knight e3 check is dangerous. So yeah, a tricky position after bishop b6, but rook ed8 was played. Knight e4, hitting the bishop. Bishop goes back. Now this one goes back, so White does seem to be a piece up, but there is pressure on the king side as well, potentially with h5 or f5, but these weren't played. Instead, Black here maybe blundered here. Apparently f5 is close to equality for Black. If taking e5, So if knight f2, h5. Oh, sorry. Press play on play chess. Okay, so this is tricky. It wasn't played though. It wasn't played. Here I think Karyakin's opponent let him off the hook maybe. With knight takes e5. Knight takes e5. And now we see king h1. Knight c4. And white's play in this position seems under pressure again. For example, if knight f3, then knight e3. But, okay, in this position, white's play. Guess what white plays here? Can you see what white plays in this position to resolve the pressure issues? It's a tactical move that's available, which is very, very clever, actually, tactically, it seems. So if I give you 20 seconds here, white to play, what would you play in this position as white? Anyone? So Sergei Karyakin, he comes up with an amazingly tactical move. Simon Novak, knight f5, great snooze. What's this knight f5 business? Let's have a look at knight f5 then, since it's been mentioned. Knight f5. So you're threatening knight e7 check, but e takes. If we take here, take here. I don't think this is any good. No, it was actually knight c6. We're still threatening the same idea, kind of knight e7, but it's interrupted the knight's protection. So queen takes c4's threatened. There's no time for rook takes d1, I think, because of knight e7 check. So that was unfortunate for black. If he takes with the rook, then he loses that one. So unfortunate move, knight c6. It's really painful, this coincidence that there's a knight fork here. Tactics rule, don't they, in chess? Knight c6 ruined black's conception. He was 3 pawns for the piece, otherwise, seemingly with good counterplay, up until this moment of knight c6. Okay, it goes downhill now. B takes, queen takes c4. Okay, there's h5 played now. A bit too late for that. It's just taken here. And now queen c3, threatening mate and protecting h3. f6. Now Karyakin's on the rampage. Queen g3 now threatened, knight takes f6. King f8. And now knight takes f6 is played anyway, just blasting black completely. His king safety. Black resigns, no, not resigned here, resigned after g takes, bishop takes. So white's got this mate in 2 threat, and is also attacking the rook. Yeah, ouch, bit of a turnaround there. So black resigned here. So clever Caruana. It's strange, I find Caruana. Sorry, why do I keep saying Caruana? Karyakin, I don't know. This has not happened before. Caruana, Karyakin. It's because of Caruana's recent performance. I don't know. He's on the mind. Caruana's on the mind. Karyakin. Okay, Sergei Karyakin. It just seems strange that he invites all this potentially controversial stuff here. Okay, it looks to be winning a piece. More obviously, if knight h7 had been played, I think we try and win No, this position. Maybe black's getting squished after b4 anyway. Where's this knight going? Can't use d7. So this was a problem. If we took here, I think that's no problem. King here. That, I don't know. Apparently accurate is king h1. We can here play knight h2. So yeah, the knight went there. So we've got this very, very tactical idea after b4. So credit to Alexander Injac trying to get some counterplay here. It looks, you know, really dangerous, this position, with this self pin, 2 pawns, and then another pawn's biting the dust soon after knight e4, bishop a1. This is the moment to get the 3 pawns for the piece. The moment. 3 pawns for the piece, or keep it at 2 pawns for the piece, and play the move f5. This position would have been different. Maybe a different story here. If you look at the pressure being built up, for example here, this actually engine-wise is better for black. This position here, we've still got this horrendous pin, it seems. You know, if white ever retreats, then he's just been getting blasted. FG, HG, and this is horrible. It starts to be horrible. Just losing material. So if black had just played this very coldly and just be 2 pawns for the piece, and it seems to try to go for white's king, that would have been better. He just plays this slight slip up, and then the game's yeah, it's getting after king h1, knight c4. This is it, knight c4. This is the big slip up. Still, he could have played bishop b8 to have some counterplay, but he plays knight c4 and then bang, knight c6, and the counterplay is going rapidly from the position. That's cruel, isn't it? Anyway, so knight c6, yeah, it's now white's in the driving seat. So anyway, let's have a look at another game then. Topalov against Radislav Wojcic. Terrible pronunciation, sorry. Let's have a quick look at this. So Topalov against Radislav Wojcic. So it was a Sicilian defense. Like this, bishop e3, e5, knight b3. So bishop e6, f3, knight bd7, g4. So very aggressive stuff from Topalov. Yeah, this Olympiad and going into the other tournaments, I sometimes wonder about Topalov with his aggressive pawn moves. But you know, sometimes it wins a lot of points, sometimes it loses. But here, okay, it looks as though white's got this space advantage coming up. After knight d5, he's sealing up that d5 square. So Topalov with white, sealing up the d5 square. And the interesting thing here, well, actually quite a remarkable thing I've noticed in a couple of Topalov games recently, is that he's interested, actually, he's got another agenda. It's not to go for the king. He's interested in light square control, actually. And you see this quite in evidence here. He gets rid of the light square bishops. And black is actually vulnerable on the light squares. He just uses this as a bind, kind of bind on the king side. So no intention of trying to smash through to black's king. Instead, now, and this is quite remarkable how this is played, white's targeting this pawn instead now. So he keeps this kingside bind and just plays a3. This is unbelievable. Well, this next move takes, so provoking the pawn to go forward. And can you guess white's move in this position? You'd think there's an idea of attacking the king or something, but white to play here. What would you play with white in this position if you had white? If I gave you 20 seconds starting from now, So white play, Topalov playing white. Any ideas? It's Topalov against Wojciech. I don't know how to say his name. Wojtasek. He's a 2735. Black is 2735. Topalov is 2772. But there's a move here which indicates black is weak on the light squares. It's strange stuff. Maybe you think the A-pawn is enough. It's on its own over here. Poor A-pawn. The other island has got 5 members, but there's only 1 pawn to that island over there. Queen B5. Queen B5. It's unbelievable. Just going for this pawn. Doesn't black have enough counterplay, you say, even if white wins that pawn? Queen C7. It would seem as though, you know, get the C-file counterplay. And Topalov, he's playing like a computer the last 2 moves. That was actually a computer suggestion, Queen B5, with a tiny advantage. And another computer move, knight takes A5. I'm not suggesting, by the way, he's using computers during his games, yeah? There's no suggestion of that at all. I'm just saying it matches what Stockfish had thought of the position. Queen B5 and take the pawn. Now here, if Queen takes C2, actually it seems, you know, this should be okay for black. This position, Bishop D8. If here, then actually taking it is okay for black apparently. So white does better with knight C4. So on the rook. And this position, you know, it seems as though D6 might be a problem. But anyway, okay, black didn't take on C2 for whatever reason. Maybe black should have taken on C2. It seems a bit cheeky, all of this, to go for the A-pawn. Instead, a rook FB8 was played, allowing Queen C6. Maybe it's justified, Topalov's play here. We have an exchange of queens. D takes. And white's actually clearly advantageous now. Black has actually blundered, I think, slightly with this, but more so by taking the queen off here. Bishop D8 apparently nearly holds the balance in this position. Nearly. If takes, then, for example, like this, this apparently is about equal. Black should have enough counterplay, but the way black played it, apparently with taking, D takes, and now D5 was played, hitting the rook, and then after that the A5 drops. The rook just drops back. Bishop D8. Was there a better move? In fact, maybe C takes was possible. C takes, knight C6. Apparently this is good for white as well. But anyway, the rook dropped back. Bishop D8. C takes. Rook takes A5. And what is this? You know, rook takes, bishop takes, king E2. So this is a dangerous pawn, yes. It's controlled by the bishop at the moment. Black inserts D4 here. Why did he do that? If he took, then rook A1 is a killer coming round, or just taking the bishop to queen. So black played D4 here, bishop D2, bishop D8, king D3, and you see there's great light squares in the endgame, even light square pressure. F6, F4, breaking up black's pawns. White took on E5, rook A1, threatening a killer pin, and the king comes for the attack, king E4. So look at this. This is just restricted black on the king side. We've got this very dangerous pawn here. King's marching in. Black's pawns are quite vulnerable. In fact, they drop off now. King takes. Check. in this position, it would seem, you know, maybe white's interested in this. Another great move here. Computer really likes this next move. If king takes hit, if king took in this position, then check is annoying. Still okay for white, but actually a stronger move was played here. Whoa, I don't want to give a clue. What does white play in this position? Move 34. So white play, if I give you 20 seconds here, what does white play in this position? Computer loves this move. Topalov has played very clinical chess in this game. I don't know if he's a perfectionist or something. He's managed to hit quite really accurate moves in these positions. But this one is really accurate. So white play in this position. What do you play? Any ideas? Yeah? Yeah. G6. So we're vacating that G5 square. I'm also threatening Rook F7. So if HG, we can play the Bishop G5. And if here, Rook F7. And that's winning a piece actually, isn't it? Because if here, we can take here. Okay. So that's pretty dangerous. So black played check. King takes. Check. King here. Check. King B3. Okay, so white's threatening all sorts of things like check or other stuff. King takes. Check. And rook takes G7. And black resigned here. Okay, he's 2 pawns down. He resigned here. He can't even take back here because he's going to lose that bishop, isn't he? He's going to lose that bishop. So, yeah, it's not particularly pleasant, this position. If king f6, here, rook b7, hitting that bishop. So, yeah, nasty stuff. So black resigned there. I just thought it was a bit strange, this whole kind of pretense on the king side. Actually sort of gaining space. Now we had this grip, but it's a really, you see this underlying light square pressure. You know, white's got, you know, ideas on the light squares actually here. Interesting. Light squares winning a pawn, but I think black's best might have been to take here. It requires some very accurate, careful play. So even in this ending, you see some more light squares are opened up. And yeah, the king's a killer. And we get this position with that G6. That was great stuff from Topalov. This was an interesting game because I want to know how to punish white players playing this. So Ivanchuk playing white against Mamedyarov. So Ivanchuk 2-7-4-4 against Mamedyarov 2-7-4-3. Very quite an evenly matched Super GM encounter. So Mamedyarov played D5, C4, C6, Knight F3, Knight F6. White played now the move E3. This is the second most popular move according to Live, but Knight C3 is popular as well. E3. And now, usually Bishop F5 is played, that's quite popular, or E6. Bishop G4, third most popular. Bishop G4 from Mamedyarov. And white played slightly dull. C takes D5, C takes, and Queen B3. So it seems to be wanting to punish the bishop over here. not on this b7. So queen c7, so threatening queen takes c1, check, knight bd7. We're still threatening this, so knight c3. It would have been quite painful if white had castled and knight e5 here, of course, but no, knight c3 because that bishop. Now bishop takes f3, a6, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, and here Ivanchuk did play technically what the engine likes in this position, which is to play knight a4 with the idea knight b6. Interesting position, really. This next move though gives black a bit of a fun game, I thought, so it's something to bear in mind in this position if you're playing black. Black plays queen b5 and he doesn't mind the double pawns here because we get that these blasting rook down the a file. Ivanchuk took this, a takes, knight c5. Again, this is like being played very coldly against b7. Very energetic e5 now, sacking the b pawn. So does black have enough compensation here? Actually, that's an interesting question. Do you think black has enough positional compensation in this position? He has actually fractured white's pawns earlier. He's got this a file pressure. He's a pawn down, clearly. Do you think black's okay, or do you prefer white here? What's the opinion? What do you guys think? Do you think black's okay here? So Mamdaryov playing black. Has he judged this correctly? Before we go on, I don't know how many of you have seen this game. I thought it was quite interesting. Would you take black or would you prefer white? So prefer white or black? Yeah. Okay, let's see what happens in the game. E takes d4, E takes, and now king d7. Wow. What on earth is this about? Well, actually king c6 is now threatened, and the king is influencing the c5 square. If we'd just done rook b8, I think this makes a big difference because of knight c5. This position, it seems, if we had this position with bishop e3, this might be quite interesting for white after bishop d4 here. Makes a big difference. Have a look at that position. Makes a big difference here. That bishop seems ideal actually on d4. An extra pawn. Control of e4 with the double pawns. But in the game we have this king d7. If we try the same sort of trick here, if we try knight c5, black can take, and king c6, and there's time for knight d7. I know. Say like this, check. This position's quite different, knight e5 here, and you see that black might have enough counterplay here, either doubling rooks against e2. Also got things like knight c4. So these little nuances in position make a big difference. This could be okay for black. If taking, then we've got c5. If white protects c5, then maybe okay, we can even attack this. So big differences of position. So it seems king d7 here is a good idea. And we have rook g1, g6, bishop g5, knight h5. For the moment going to the rim, king d2, rook a7, knight check, that's taken, d takes. But now the black rooks can coordinate, so there's on a2, and apparently this is equal from an engine point of view. Pardon me, this position is dead equal here, a3, king c6, sorry, king c6. Rook g4, again, totally equal from an engine point of view. But after knight g7, it looks as though this is a naughty knight. Knight coming to e6 to hit things. Rook d1. And now the evaluation has shifted not massively, significantly in black's favour after this move. I don't know, apparently rook c1 was equal after knight e6, bishop f6. Apparently this is okay for both sides. This apparently is okay, equal. But in the game, the rook went to d1. So how does this nuance change things? Let's have a look. So knight e6 was played. Well, here, in this position, if white plays bishop f6, then apparently black is doing well with rook a4. Maybe, so rook c4 or knight c5, knight takes c5 on the cards. So that's tricky here for white. So in the game, so rook d1, knight e6, bishop went back, and now we've got this potential d4 on the cards to bear in mind. Rook a4 now threatens, it seems, d4. Big difference of position. So the pawn is dangerous here, and in fact Injac completely collapses here. He maybe should have played king c2. Maybe that was safest. If he plays king c2, then black's doing very nicely with rook d8 now. For example, taking, fixing down these pawns. Well, d4's on the cards. So this position apparently is quite pleasant for black. This position here. But what happened in the game was actually king c3, and can you see, this was now the last move of the game here at move 25, king c3. What does black play here, if you haven't seen this game before? So what does black play? Black to play here, and it causes resignation actually. Anyone? So black to play. Any ideas? Someone's mentioned f5. No. d4 check is a killer forcing move here, and it forces white to resign. Because I think if bishop takes, we just play this check, and it's pretty nasty. This check here. If king b3, now h5, this bishop's fragile, yeah. If rook here, rook d8, and we've got that nasty pin, winning a piece. Also, I mean, rook d8 immediately is okay as well. That's like pretty good as well. So yeah, this d4 check, yeah, this loose piece here, this horrible pin, this forces resignation. So this check here is a killer. On rook here, there might have been something for white, b3. But no, the way it's played with the check. And if king d3, even easier I think, knight takes d4, and then we can just take here and end up winning the rook. So I thought this game, personally, for me, was interesting because it was such a dry position to win from. Here, dry. White's playing kind of clinical, solid chess with this opening, but it seems Black's neat knight maneuvers and play on the A file, it seems visually is interesting. Okay, the tactic at the end crowns everything. But poor Injac, yeah. He didn't have the best Olympiad, I think. Okay, so let's have a look at another one. Yeah. So, Pavel Elzhanov against Ralph Mamedov. Let's have a look at this game. Flip the boards. So another Slav. C takes, and then bishop f4. So e3. So white's playing very solidly. Exchange Slav. Yeah, and I have a kind of morbid fascination with these dry opening sequences to see how is it possible that anyone wins from them. So there's kind of a weird fascination with them, these positions, as well as open Sicilians. So bishop b5. There's a bit of pressure on c6. There's e5 control. Sometimes white threatens to have the c5 square in some circumstances. e6, knight f3, bishop b4. White castles. Bishop takes c3. Now white plays an accurate move here. Well, he has to because his bishop's like loose. So he takes on c6. B takes c6. B takes c3. Black castles. And here is where something got interesting, I thought, about this game. Knight e5. Because actually, this is quite important, this d7 square tactically. It seems in this position, in conjunction with g4, g5. And we see this here, that the queen got out of the way, because otherwise this is going to be forking. If rook b8, you know, g4, g5, and then we fork. Or even better, there might actually be better here. Well, we can actually win the exchange here as well. But anyway, you get the idea. So the queen got out of the way. g4. And now h4. So this has gone a bit crazy, trying to win the bishop. So h6. White takes on g6. So structural damage. That dark square bishop looks a menace. f3. h5 is played. Queen c2 looking at g6. King h7. Bishop d6. The rook moves. And now rook f2 is played. So it looks as though at the cursory glance hg might be interesting. What happens here on hg? Let's have a quick look. If hg, h5, and if knight takes h5, rook h2, so we're threatening rook takes h5. So black would be crumbling here, I think. This sort of position, black crumbles. So okay, that's to be borne in mind. So rook d7 was played. Bishop e5. Rook f8. And now white took on f6, and he's going for the king. He's actually going for the king now. After g takes h5, it's really quite dangerous, this stuff. King h6. H takes g6. So this is horrible, threatening to consolidate that pawn. Black took here, rook g2. Black took again, king takes. Rook f7 was played, might not be the most accurate. Rook g1, so there's an attack going on here. Just move the king and threaten mate. g6, the king's moved, so threatening mate. Rook f6, and the final move of the game. White play, he plays, I think, the most incisive move here. So what does White play in this position? If I give you 20 seconds, starting from now. So it finishes the game off against this 2659 was playing black. So Pavel Eljanov playing white finishes the game with, what would you play here with white? Any ideas? All right, yeah, it seems h5 is crushing. Let's have examine this. Black resigned. If g5, queen g2, and if rook f5, then we play e4. So yeah, that g5 is falling apart here. If the rook ever moves, we just interrupt with e5. Yeah, we're going to win g5. So h5, if takes here, then queen g2, so we're threatening here. If here, we play check, and we win the rook. Okay, whatever. So why was this game chosen? I just thought it was just odd how, you know, players with white play this, and it seems to be it's still a pressing initiative here after knight e5. Because of just g4, g5. If rook fd8 had been played instead, again, g4 apparently gives white an advantage, believe it or not. Because, you know, h4, advantage for white. So, yeah, I thought it was a bit strange. The quiet opening here. So against the Slav, an emergency option, if you want to bore the opponents to death, is to play c takes d5, and then bishop f4, and then e3. So it avoids all this problem of gambiting c4 pawns. That's why I was personally interested in it, because I keep losing blitz games when I gambit the c pawn. So why not consider just, you know, c takes d5? That was the real point for me noting this game, actually. Okay, one more, or two more. Nope. I think that's it. I think I've had enough now. I hope you have got something out of it. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube. See you next week. Thanks very much.